not abusing it, and using it too much has, I think, been a really tricky thing with my mental health, and I do have to step back and also take a break and or reevaluate my consumption, because I'm still seeing therapists and I still have some like emotional, or I've got something. I believe the last session, my new counselor says, she thinks she's gonna diagnose me with bipolar 2, the less severe one.
Hmm.
But since she just met me, she's not sure yet. And I kind of think I have flare ups or something if I'm smoking too much. I don't know yet. I just know it's well known that mental issues or things can be exacerbated if you are already
Absolutely.
prone. And that's been hard for me to accept because I do love cannabis so much, and I've been trying to adjust my use and see now.
Well, first off, big respect to you for talking about your mental health. I'd love to talk more about mental health, about toxic masculinity today, which really kind of inhibits people from talking about their own mental health or depression issues. So I think it's a huge thing, and I admire you for in a public forum like this talking about potentially being bipolar. And I've
Thanks.
suffered from depression myself, and um, really, really, really important that we all just are open and talk and don't judge others for sharing that kind of stuff. Mushrooms for me, I only one time in my life. My family is very prone to depression. People in my family have suffered from it very, very deeply, even been hospitalized before. And
Yes, same.
yeah, my father even went through shock treatment for it. So severe depression in my family. I felt like I had sidestepped that, being almost 50, but about a year ago, or a couple years ago, it hit me for the first time ever. And for 3 months, I was really depressed. I couldn't really get out of bed very well. I couldn't focus. It was really scary and it was awful. And I I enjoyed being able, looking back now, to understand what depression is truly like, because if you've never suffered from it, it's very hard to understand. And I think a lot of people think like, buck the fuck up, stop being weak. You can't fix yourself if you're truly chemically depressed. And so for me, I stopped or slowed my cannabis use, and I did some really targeted therapy with psilocybin mushrooms. And I was experimenting with microdosing, which was cool and it helped a little bit. But then I did something, I guess they call it a hero's dose. I did a large dose of mushrooms and I was immediately cured. Like I woke up the next day and it was gone. And this huge, heavy blanket that just fucked my life up for 3 or 4 months was gone. Like, I mean, it almost makes me want to cry right now how much it helped me. Um,
That's
so I
beautiful.
really, really would think you and anyone else out there should look at those options for your mental health.
I've experimented both with I've been using shrooms for over 10 years, and I started with the heroes doses, and I feel like those are very effective. But recently, I tried. I was reading studies of how they do dosages for the clinical therapeutic protocols. I try to mimic that, even though I don't have clinical grade psilocybin and exactly how they administer it. Um, and it's a very different way of experiencing that trip. Like you said, you did it too. You experimented with microdosing as well. I try to
Mhm.
do like consecutive weeks with like increasing dosages, but still the hero's dose trips are a different thing. Part of I think.
A reset. It's almost like it resets the neurons of your brain or something. It's an immediate change versus that microdosing seems to be more of a evolving, slow change. I think they're two different ways of getting better, but they both are effective.
This is how I know people also have very different experiences on anything you take. Some people I've heard say like the come down of the recovery after shrooms is like, oh, so much more pleasant than like the I take, or like all the other drugs comparatively. But not me, but like them comparing the shrooms to other psychedelics. And my recovery after those heroes doses are usually just as interesting of a time an experience as the actual trip. Like the next day, it's usually there's like a lot of reflection, and I'm often exhausted, and um, just in a different mood and mode than the actual trip. And then it's kind of like a two-part experience to shrooms for me when I do those big, like more than an eighth, or more,
Yeah.
because I think there's also something to like kind of suffering during the trip, and then like there's a purge and there's like a recovery and like an
Embracing
intensity.
that uncomfortableness is a huge thing. Like getting comfortable being uncomfortable is a huge growth process for people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would tend to agree with everything you're saying for sure.
Thank you. I'm glad we got to like hit into the toxic masculinity thing, because that's also like I feel like we were both into sports or athletics, and that's just so common in that world. Part of it can be healthy, like healthy competition and things like that, but then there's also um, kind of is it a personality trait or something that brings out, you know what? Because I've seen toxic masculinity in from women, from it's. I don't think it's a gender thing. I think it's there's something else to it.
Ultimately, I think it's our society. You know, like we've been programmed and told our entire lives through our all-encompassing, overreaching, overarching society that if you were a man, you hold your feelings in, you're strong. Strength is equated to not crying and not sharing your feelings, and that's that to me. Like it's ridiculous. It's ignorant, and to me, masculinity is being comfortable enough to cry in front of other people, comfortable enough to do what you just did and share things that others might perceive as a weakness, that aren't a weakness. So being comfortable in who you are and just being like, this is me, and if you don't like it, fuck you. That's masculinity. I cry all the time, man. I'm a huge crier. I look back to being 12 years old, going 11, going to see ET with my mom, and
Yeah.
all my buddies, like my tough guy. You know, I was Mr. Tough Guy Cool. I was playing the toxic masculinity card up until I was probably 40 years old. And they were all there together. I was with my mom, and remember as ET died, I just started fucking crying my eyes out. And I was so scared that these guys were going to see me crying, because that would have just ruined my image, as the tough guy at school. So it's sad looking back, because I really wish I could have been more open and in tune with my emotions versus just trying to shove them down my throat and fake like they weren't there. And it's really a great time to see the world opening up to, I think America, is starting to see, along with all I think the things that we've all just been talking about, and this might be a great lead into a next discussion, have opened our minds and our hearts to the possible new perception of what these words mean, like masculine or feminine. I mean, I consider myself I think I'm very masculine. I am happy with who I am, and I'm also a feminist.
Yeah.
I think we all need to take a really hard look at how we define those terms and really
Yeah,
re-encompass that.
because it never meant man or woman. It just meant it's a feminine and masculine. It's more of a way to describe an energy or something.
Absolutely. Right on.
I've I grew up with my friends' moms saying that that Zach's feminine, and then a lot of people wondering if I was gay growing up. On air, my name's Twinkie. That was a huge thing. Kevin loved to like joke about whatever. So I cry all the time. I cried last all night last night watching poetry spoken word videos.
Have you seen My Octopus Teacher? I bawled my eyes out watching
No,
that.
yeah, I saw you post that, and I do want to check that out. Interesting. I'm surprised. I think you're the fifth person I've interviewed so far in this new project I'm doing. I'm surprised I haven't cried yet, because all of these, the only theme I have for this podcast is I'm looking for guidance. I'm looking for ideas, help. The mental health journey right now is kind of the most important journey I have right now, and this is a way for me to get invite so many different people to get their ideas on I don't know what's wrong with me, or what's wrong with
What's right with you, really? Don't say what's wrong. What's right?
it's
And
okay.
I really admire you, man. I think what you're doing is fucking amazing, and I think that you know, you're a special person to be able to share all this stuff, and you're helping a lot of people by doing it. You know, I think that should eventually be a cathartic thing for you when you see how many people you're touching by being honest, and that's going to help you a lot.